This week on Breaking Bullying, we may be clowning around, but we're serious when it comes to bullying. So we're going to hit that music and get started. This week, we have an award winning humanitarian clown who travels the world with a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, Patch Adams. And if you're not familiar with the movie Patch Adams, I recommend you go watch it. He's also the founder and lead clown missionary at Clowns on a Mission, a humanitarian initiative to spread love, offer peace, inspire hope, and bring visibility to those who feel forgotten and bullied. Please welcome Bullseye the Clown. Bullseye, thanks for
Yay!
coming.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
Yeah, I love it. I'm really impressed you get to work with the real Patch Adams. That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even at first I didn't even know he was still alive. I After I saw the movie, I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was like a real person," until I started doing some kind of research on him to find out what he was really like. And so I was like, "Oh, wow, he's really real."
So, Bullseye, what made you want to be a clown?
Honestly, if you had told me that I was going to be a clown when I was 47 years old, I would have told you you were crazy. Actually, my father passed away in 2018, and at that time I was 47. And as you mentioned, I watched the movie Patch Adams, and then as I was kind of um, going onto his website, I found out, oh wow, he is a real person, and he does these clown tours. And my dad was not a traveler. He stayed around Ohio his whole life, never really traveled anywhere, never been on an airplane his whole life. And so he left me like a little bit of money. And so I thought, you know what? I didn't want to just pay a bill with the money that he left. So I thought, I'm going to do something just off the wall. And so I decided to sign up for a Patch Adams tour. I had never been a clown before. I was a stand up comic for 10 years. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll write to Patch Adams and see if I can do this tour. He may say I'm not even qualified to be a clown. I don't know how you qualify, but
Yeah,
so
is there a clown college?
uh, there actually, well, there used to be like the Barnum and Bailey Clown College, and there are
Okay.
places like clown camps. There are clown camps all over the United States, so that you can go into train and to learn to juggle and to do magic and things like that. But I hadn't learned any of that yet. So I wrote to Patch Adams, and he said, "Oh yeah, come and join us on this tour." So this was a 14-day tour to Russia. So before I knew it, here I was in the middle of Russia with 37 clowns going into like children's hospitals and orphanages and drug
Were you
rehab
all in a little?
centers and
Were you all in a Volkswagen Beetle?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. No, we had a long bus, but yeah, it would have been funny if we all could have fit into the a little bug and
That'd be awesome.
drove up to each place, and all of a sudden we just all started popping out. But yeah, that was quite the experience. I wasn't really expecting to clown again after that. It was just one of those things, but I just saw like the power and the effect that clowning had on the people that we clowned with, like the people who were in the hospitals and the little kids in the burn units and stuff. And I just saw how, their face lit up even though they were like in the midst of like a lot of pain. And then of course, I had been bullied as a child, and even into adulthood I was bullied some. And so I had like a lot of anger going into this trip. My dad had just died and I was dealing with all this bullying stuff. Um and what I found out, like, when I came home after being happy, for 14 straight days, all that, like, angst and anger and all that stuff that I had for all these people who were mean to me, like, in years past, all that stuff was just kinda gone. And
Wow.
so it became like a little high. It became like, "Oh, okay, well, yes, I'm doing great things for other people, but at the same time, this thing is kinda, helping me process all of the bad things that have happened to me in my life." And so that's why I continued to do it, because I thought, "Oh, well, I gotta figure out a way to continue doing this once I'm home."
Yeah. What type of bullying did you experience?
At school, it was being pushed into lockers and called names and tripped, and back in those days, we didn't have the internet, so, if the bullies wanted to bully you, they had to make house calls. They had to show up at your house, grab your underwear, run it up the flagpole. You know, we didn't have like Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. So it's that kind of stuff. But then my parents divorced when I was really young, and so I went to live with my mother and my stepfather was an alcoholic who was abusive. So, he would hit us with the belt if we didn't do the dishes or I didn't make my bed or whatever it happened to be. So it was always trying to navigate the bullies at school, and then you would come home and have to navigate him and hope that he passed out. Just here, have another beer, pass out so that you leave me alone. That kind of thing, you know. So yeah, that's pretty much that was kind of the extent of it. And then I just kind of learned my own mechanisms. We didn't really bullying was kind of a thing back then. I mean, it's always been a thing, but it didn't really have the term bullying. It's just, oh, that's just Timmy. He'll grow out of it. Don't worry about it. And so the teachers weren't really aware of it like they are today. But of course, even today, sometimes this it overwhelms the teachers too, and they still don't know what to do with the process. Um, but back then, it was just kind of like I had to learn how to navigate this myself.
Yeah.
Um, they always say, oh, tell somebody you're being bullied. Well, as a kid, I didn't want to tell my parents I was being bullied because, I mean, I guess I had this warped sense of, well, if I tell my parents that nobody at school likes me, then they're going to think that there's something wrong with the way they raised me, or they're going to think there's something wrong with them. And so I just kind of kept quiet and figured out, okay, I just need to figure out how to avoid these people or
Yeah.
figure out how to fight back or do something, whatever it happened to be. And so I just kind of trial and error started doing things that I tried to avoid as many of those bullies as I could.
Okay. How old were you when you went to Russia to do your clown?
Oh, I was 47.
Oh, good. Okay. So,
Yeah, yeah, so it was, I mean, I was like, I hadn't really processed any of that bullying stuff, like, whenever I was a kid, whenever I went to college, none of that, so,
so
I
you
never
held it
really dealt
in.
with any of it. Yeah,
So
mhm,
you held it in
and
for
it just
over
kinda
30 some years.
Yeah, and so it just kinda and it was interesting because, I'm also one of those people, I don't know, when you've been bullied, sometimes you try to become invisible to other people. You're like, if nobody sees me, then they're not gonna bully me. And so I lived my whole life kind of trying to hide from people and trying to not be noticed. And so it was quite the culture shock when you go into another country that you've never been to. Nobody speaks English hardly. And then at the same time, everybody sees you everywhere you go because we were never out of costume. So everywhere we went, people were, "Oh my gosh, there's a clown!" They were all like running over to us, um, and so somebody who's tried to be invisible his whole life, all of a sudden, everybody sees you everywhere you go. It was quite overwhelming that first week. So at the end of the first week, we had what was called a therapy session, and that was like our chance
Yeah.
to get all these emotions out that we were all feeling from so many things happening to us. you know, um,
Did it did it
and I wasn't
oh,
the only one. I wasn't the only one. There was a few other clowns there who were freaked out by being
yeah.
so noticed all the time too. But go ahead, would you?
Did that nervousness if affect your performance the first week?
Probably. I mean, I really had no idea what I was doing. I really wish I had gone to like a clown camp or a clown school or knew how to juggle or do a balloon animal. I knew nothing. He said, "Oh, just grab some costumes and come on." And luckily, there were clowns there who had been on trips before, and so he would kind of try to pair us up. Hey, so and so has been on 17 trips, so why don't you, go into this hospital room with him for a little while and kind of watch what he does and so, I mean, you just kind of worked your way through it. Um, I really didn't feel like I did a good job that first clown tour. I mean, I suppose I did because I reached people and people were crying and all that kind of stuff as far as like the people that we were seeing. So I guess that I do feel like I reached some people while I was there, even though I had no idea what I was doing. So that's why I wanted to do another tour now that I went to like the clown camps and learned a little bit of stuff. And I'm like, okay, now I think I can be a better clown than I was the first time. Because it was like trial by fire. It was like a 14-day boot camp of clowning. It was like, oh gosh, what am I doing?
So when you say he was telling you to do this, was that was Patch Adams, correct?
Yeah. Patch was on the trip with us, and then, like I said, 37 other clowns, and the clowns come from all over. So, I mean, I was from the United States. I had never been out of the United States by that point. So that was kind of a freaky thing all in itself. And then, when you get into these places and then realize here you are talking to them and none of them speak English, and you're like, oh. So we realized we couldn't talk to the people. We just had to do like physicalities and how just have fun and show props and do whatever. Uh, I was like, "Oh, I didn't even dawn on me that they wouldn't know English."
Yeah.
Because coming from the United States and never having been abroad, I just assumed that everybody knew English, and so it kind of was, I kind of went, "Oh, wow, this is not what I signed up for."
So how does Bullseye the Clown become a anti-bullying expert?
Well, the way I look at it is, I figure I became a class clown. So, I mean, I guess in a way I was a clown, like even way before I became a real clown. And so I figure, you know what? It was the bullies that made me become a class clown. So it's only fitting that a bully should be, or a clown should be a person to combat bullying. So I figure it's just a way to take back my authority over over the people who bullied me. Because that's kind of what I did as a kid. I would crack jokes when the bullies would come by, or I would flop on the floor and play dead, or I would scream fire, or I would run down the hallway screaming something, just to draw attention to the fact that I was being bullied. And of course, most of the time, the teacher would come out and think that I was the nutty one. "Wait, what is the matter with you? Why are you acting like this?" Well, because so and so. No, just go back, go to your homeroom and be. And so it was just kind of like I tried to be funny and I tried to draw attention to myself,
Did
so
it
that
work?
hopefully it would kind of, most of the time it did, depending on where we were. Of course, if there's nobody around, then it's not going to work. But for the most part, I mean, it got to the point by the time I started high school, they were like, "Leave that kid alone. That kid is nuts. He's messed up." you know, I mean, he screams fire, pulls fire drills, slams locker doors, whatever. I mean, I would just do whatever, flop on the floor, whatever it took to get away, just enough to distract them. So it did. I mean, it did work. I'd, and everybody says, "Well, do you recommend that?" I'm like, "Well, why not?" I mean, it worked for me. I mean, I can't guarantee it's going to work for everybody, and depending on what
Yeah.
kind of distraction you're causing. But
I remember when I was bullied, I was the opposite. I was the shy kid. I just didn't want people to look at me, period. Leave me alone. And you were just like, well, I'm just gonna start
well,
cracking jokes.
for the most part, I really was shy. I mean, and I know people, even now I'm shy. I really don't, even though I'm a clown, and I dress like this all the time. Um, I don't, I don't necessarily enjoy, making a spectacle of myself all the time. But it just became like a way to, counteract them. And I mean, I eventually got to the point where I kind of knew where they were meeting me. So if they were always meeting me like at my locker after fourth period or whatever, then I would make sure that I was not at my locker after fourth period. I would make sure that I took that book with me, or that I didn't need to stop there. And I would kind of reroute myself, so that I could avoid them as much as possible. Of course, it was hard to avoid them, like in gym class, and of course I hated gym class. I was not like a buff, muscular kid, and so I was like, "Don't hit the ball to me, don't hit the ball to me," that kind I
Yeah.
was that kinda kid. So, of course, I know always they would hit the ball toward me, catch it," and I would be like, "No."
Well, back
So,
then, those dodgeballs hurt. Those dodgeballs hurt back then because we had
yes,
the red rubber ones. Those things stung.
y they sure did. And you know what? There was one time one of my bullies threw the ball at me and I caught it. It broke my watch, but I caught it. And he was out. I was so excited. That was like the highlight of my whole like school career, was the fact that I caught that dodgeball. I was like, at least that was like a win for me.
You bet.
It's like you take the small wins when you can get them.
When you're out traveling now, I assume you're speaking with mostly kids, correct?
I'm not always, no.
Okay.
Even when we go on like our clown tours, we probably clown with about half. Okay, like we just got back from Costa Rica and we went into 2 prisons. And so of course in the prisons it was a women's prison. So some of the women did have children, but for the most part we were clowning with the women there. And then we went to a youth prison. It was youth offenders from like ages like 17 to 25 or so. So they were older. And then like I said, we go into hospices where like there's old folks. I go into a lot of senior living and dementia wards and things like that. So I actually clown with a lot of like adult people. They
Okay.
may not all have the they may not all have like the mental capacity of normal adults always. But yeah, I know but I still go we still go into like, orphanages and schools and things like that as well. So I mean, it's probably about I would say half and half.
Okay. And what is your main message when you go out to these seminars or these events that you guys do?
Well, with Patch, his whole thing, his basically his thing is, we love everybody and everybody, so our whole thing is just to show love and compassion and empathy to everybody that we meet, and our job is to make sure that everybody at some point smiles. And because I was always that kid that was invisible and I didn't want to be noticed, I make it a point whenever when 35 clowns, converge onto an orphanage, I always find it my duty to find that one kid who is sitting alone in the corner. And so that's kind of my challenge. It's like, okay, I'm going to go up to the kid sitting by himself and try to get the kid engaged and just kind of make him feel a part of what it is that we're doing here. Because chances are, if they're not engaged in the activity when we all come in, is probably because they were bullied by the other kids, and so they don't feel like they should participate. They kind of
Yeah.
keep back. And so I purposely will seek out somebody who's not as enthusiastic and ready to go, and see if I can win them over. So
What kind
that
of
that was a hard one.
yeah, like what techniques
That
do you
that's hard.
use? What techniques do you use to get these kids that are shy to open up to you?
Well, so in Russia, like I said, that was my very first time. I had never done, but I found this little girl and she was sitting, and we were in this big gymnasium and she was sitting over in the chair by the side. And I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to go over and sit down beside her. And so I went over and sat down beside her and I was like waving at her and she like gave me this really dirty look and she got up and she moved to a different chair. And I thought, well, how rude. So I got up and I moved right to the chair next to her and I waved at her again and she gave me a dirty look and she got up and moved. And we did this all the way around the gymnasium. So I thought, okay, well, that did not work. So I reached in my bag and I had like bubbles, just a little
Yep.
bottle of bubbles. And so I started blowing bubbles. And then she became very fascinated by the bubbles, and so she came over and sat down beside me and put her hand out, and I gave her a dirty look, and I got up and I moved to a different chair. And then we kinda did the same thing all the way around the gym again, because this time she was kinda chasing me around, and then when we got back, I gave her, like, the bottle of bubbles, and we kinda played with the bubbles, and we had some fun with the bubbles and stuff. So it was just kinda that was kinda how I did it. It was kind of like a learning experience. You just kinda learn as you go, and everybody's different. I mean, even when we went to the prison, we went to this, yeah, it was hard to get like these 25-year-old men to kind of interact with a clown. They're like,
Yeah.
make me laugh, clown. you know, yeah, you're sitting there going, oh, you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And these guys are just like, you guys are stupid. And so, um, and one guy, all he wanted to do was like bust the balloons. So I started just blowing up a bunch of balloons and throwing them on the floor just so that he could pop them. I'm like, hey, if this is the way we can engage him and this is the way we can get him to participate, then I'm all for it. So you just kind of find what each person has, and luckily there's enough clowns with us that if they don't like me as a clown, then they'll like the next clown that comes by and they'll interact. And so we just kind of all kind of work off of each other and if push them towards some other clowns. We're like, okay, you might like her. Let's go over there. That kind of thing. Um, yeah, I mean everybody's different in every country we go to. It's like we hardly ever speak the language. It was like in Costa Rica, I don't really speak Spanish much. I can understand a little bit of it. So I'm trying to go back to my Spanish roots. Whenever I was in school, I learned Spanish somewhat. Um, but yeah, I've gone to Costa Rica, we've gone to Morocco, we've gone to Mexico, Russia. So it was really funny. I went to England, and my mother said, "Now, do you speak their language?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, in England, I do speak their language. I do know their their language for the most part."
Just try to get the accent
So I thought
down.
that was fun. Exactly, yeah, and they do have, like, really weird words that they'll throw in every once in a while that I'm like, "What is that?" But, yeah, for the most part, I think I can handle England.
Were you ever cyberbullied at all?
Usually every day, even now, I mean, even as an
Really?
adult, there's always somebody yeah, there's always somebody saying something negative online. I learned very quickly, how to navigate that. Cyberbullying, I first of all, there's certain platforms I won't go on, and I hate to say it, Twitter.
Yeah,
So
I'm not
don't
on
sue
Twitter
me,
either.
Elon. Yeah, yeah, I was like, "Don't
Or
sue me, Elon Musk." But I don't go into Twitter because I think Twitter is probably the worst. The cyberbullying is the worst on there, and the reason being you can't really control it unless you're always like delete, 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 delete. At least with like Facebook, I can go onto somebody's profile, like when they say friend request and then they want to be my friend on Facebook, I can go and I can look at their profile. And I do. I mean, and I'll scroll for like a long ways on their profile. If I don't like what I see on their profile, I hit delete and I block them. I don't want them on my feed. Because if they're being mean on their own feed, then they're going to be mean on my feed. And so I just don't want any of that. I've deleted people as friends off my Facebook. I've deleted comments. I police mine very well because I like to be a Facebook page for you know nice comments. I mean, I still like to tackle some good topics on there, but for the most part, I want it to be an uplifting experience. When you come to my Facebook
yeah.
page, I don't want you to go, "Oh my gosh, that was the most depressing Facebook page I've ever been on." So I police it very well. If there's comments I don't like, I delete them. And I try to interact because somebody really makes a bad comment. I'll try to make like a nice comment first. Well, thank you for replying, to my
Yeah.
message. Um, Although you said it in a very negative way, I appreciate the fact that you took the time. So I try to be like very pleasant, and if they still come back with like really nasty stuff, then I just delete them. I don't really want to get into like this big involved process of talking to them. And I
And
know as it,
is this your Bullseye the Clown account or is this your personal account?
well, I kind of have a lot of things wrapped up together. So I do have like a bullseye the clown account, and then I have my own account, but I do like a lot of clown stuff on there. So most of the people who know me are on my actual Facebook page as well. So it's like but I police everything. It's like I because my Facebook page, my personal page, and my Bullseye the Clown page, um, to me, they kind of reflect each other. So, people who know me will go onto like my personal page, and a lot of the same stuff is on the same pages. So I just make sure that I'm keeping it all positive and happy, and the same thing with my Instagram page. I make sure that my Instagram page is just my Bullseye the Clown Instagram page.
Okay.
So I do keep all of that stuff.
So
Kind of
what type of things are people typing in there to be mean to a clown? Because how first of all, how can you be mean to a clown? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, sometimes if people are they say they give me the thing that they're afraid of clowns, and so that's usually kinda how it starts, or it's something about, "Oh, I saw the movie It," and so it kinda starts off with the whole horror clowns and that kinda
So
thing.
they're
That's kinda
afraid
how
of
some of it
clowns, but
starts.
yet they're gonna talk to a clown online.
"Yeah, I hate your makeup. Take your makeup off." Whatever, yeah, just crazy stuff. So it's just like, you know what, I mean, luckily, I've gotten to the point now, by policing it that very seldom um do I get any negative comments? I mean, I don't mind negative comments. Like, if somebody's criticizing, "Hey, look, I don't like the shirt you're wearing." Okay, well, what don't you like about it? That we can kind of talk about. But if it's just something, like wanting to call me a name, you're a doofus. Well, yeah, most clowns are. So, okay. Thank you for your honesty. So I always try to say something positive. Even though and that's kind of what I try to tell people is if somebody's trying to bully you online, try to say something positive, like "Thank you for posting" or "Thank you for responding to my post." However, I said, but I always make sure I get my dig in too. I think your post was way off base or whatever you want to say. Um, and then I close it with, but, feel free to post again, I try to make, like, a good comment, say what I wanna say, and then say another good comment, that kinda sandwiches it between them. But like I said, rarely do anymore do I have to deal with a lot of negative comments because I kind of police my own accounts very, very well.
When you reply back to them, does that usually work? Do they interact with you some more, or do they just leave you alone?
No, usually they get ticked off because they do catch the comment that I made in between the two nice comment or whatever I say, thank you for posting. Well, I wasn't posting on your page to be nice, but I said I know, and so so after a while, I do kind of have to cut it off. Sometimes I would just block them, and then just delete the comments. I mean, I'll leave my original post up, whatever that happened to be, but I'll just delete the comment. So it's like I try to engage them somewhat because, I'll be honest with you. I wrote a book on bullying, and while I was writing the book, um, one of the bullies that used to bully me actually sent me a Facebook a message on Messenger, and he was going through a 12-step program. And so one of the 12 steps is to make amends to people that you've wronged. And so he felt the need to contact me to um, tell me why he bullied me and to ask for not necessarily my forgiveness, but just as to
Yeah.
try to make amends. Um, and so I actually put that letter in the book. And so, I didn't want to shut him down. I mean, I kept asking him questions, because I was curious, now that I'm, 50 years old, it's like, okay, I'm grown up enough to take the answers and to figure out what was going on. So it was just kind of neat to kind of really kind of get to the bottom of why he was bullying me.
And why did he?
And so okay, so he was like a kind of a mixed race. So he was, and so a lot of people bullied him. So he liked to fit in with like the jocks and the tough guys. And so in order for them not to bully him, he would bully other people, just so that he wouldn't get bullied.
It was
Um,
survival.
and yeah, so for him, it was survival as well. It was kinda like, "You know what? I'm gonna bully this kid because I can, um, and it'll make me look tough to my friends, and then it'll also keep those were his friends, but it'll also keep them from then turning on me." So it was kinda like, a cycle, I and, but it was good to kinda get to the bottom of it, and so I wanted to know, "Well, have you grown out of that?" "No, not really," he said. So he tends to get a job where he works by himself. He doesn't have really any other coworkers around him, and so he really lives kind of like a really isolated life. I mean, he was married, and then that didn't work out, and you know, um, and so it's just really interesting to see that some of the people who become bullies really don't grow out of that, and they tend to. It's ironic that they tend to live sometimes isolated lives, as some people who have been bullied also tend to live isolated lives because they don't want to let anybody in. Or afraid that they'll get bullied by somebody else.
Yeah. It's almost
Does
it's
that make
almost
sense?
sad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to get a picture of him in my head right now. So he told you he hasn't grown out of it, but he's alone, probably depressed.
Mhm.
You think maybe bullying could be tied to like a mental issue where he just can't change it,
Well, it
change his
could be,
attitude?
I mean, I don't know, is your podcast PG-13? I don't I don't wanna say
It's
anything on here that's,
We can always put the E on
but,
there.
okay, no, but what he said is he said, I that's why I asked him. I said, "Well, do you continue to bully?" He says, "No, I think I'm just an asshole." He said, "I think that's just who I am, and that's kind of what he's resigned himself to be, is that's just what he's gonna do for the rest of his life, is just be that kind of person instead of." And I'm thinking, well, you're not really working on that 12 steps very well if you're not really wanting to get out of that cycle that you're in where you can't keep a relationship, you can't hold down a friendship, you can't even really have coworkers that you get along with. So you find a job where I think he was like a forklift driver, or he worked in some kind of a factory where he kind of worked alone, and didn't have anybody else kind of working around him. It was something like that. Um, but I always found it interesting because I always thought that those were the bullies were the people who thrived, and when they got out of school, they were like the big jocks, and they went on to play like college sports and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then it was the bullied ones, the ones that like me that were left behind, that we were the ones that kind of like lived the alone, sad life.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I started really talking about bullying was the fact that I was fascinated by like even me, I was 47 when I became a clown, but really up to that point, I hadn't really lived up to my potential or did whatever I thought I was going to do. I thought I would be a big actor by that point, but I just never went for any of that kind of stuff because of the thoughts and stuff that went through my head, like, oh no, you know, they told me that I was no good, blah, 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 blah. But then I
Yeah.
was fascinated by other people who were bullied, like Lady Gaga, who was bullied and became like a huge superstar, and Susan Boyle, and even oh, what's his name? Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan was bullied as a kid and became like this big action. And I'm thinking, wow, it's amazing. What makes some bullied people become like superstars in spite of the fact that they were bullied, and then some people take jobs that are kind of beneath them because they don't feel like they're qualified, or they don't want to be noticed by going for a job that they should be going for. So that was kind of my idea originally when I started writing the book, and it just kind of morphed into something else. But that was my original idea, and I was not originally going to do the book for kids. It was going to be for adults who are like me, who were bullied as a kid and never got over it. So that was kind of my angle at that time. It just kind of changed into something different as I was working on it.
Yeah, we've had many guests on our show who have now very success. We've had guests on our show who that I can't say it today. Successful. Why can't I say successful today? Take it again. We have had guests on our show that have very successful careers, and what they told me is that when they were bullied, it was like a motivator to become a better person. Maybe that was what driving them to strive harder for acceptance. I'm not sure why
Yeah,
it is, but
I get that. I mean, I definitely get that, but at the same time, I was the opposite. I was kinda like, I thought, oh, after college that I would move to New York City and I would, study acting and I would, do, and I thought, "You know what? I'm gonna get eaten up out there. People are gonna kick me down." And so I just kinda talked myself out of it. And so, like, a lot of times along the way, I would just talk myself out of things. And then I just think you reach an age, and apparently my age was 47. That was the age where I said, I don't give a crap. You know,
yeah,
I'm going to be a clown, and that's the way it is. I don't care if I'm 100 years old and I'm a clown, walking around with my cane. Whatever. So you just reach a
yeah.
point where you stop worrying about other people and just start focusing on what it is that you want to do. And you know, I was,
Are we
that's
doing
kind of
enough?
where that. Go ahead.
Sorry. All right. As a society, do you feel like we are doing enough to combat bullying?
No. I mean,
What do we need
I
to work
don't think
on?
we are. Well, and I think it starts at schools. I really don't think the schools are doing enough. I mean, I know that they're aware, um, but at the same time, growing up, it was always, you tell somebody you're being bullied and the bullying will stop. Well, I'm a firm believer that that is not the case. That you tell somebody you're being bullied. One, you tell somebody you're being bullied, and that's going to really fire up the bully, and it may even actually get worse before it gets better. But then at the same time, okay, the person that I tell, they have to be able to cope with it and they have to be able to do something about it. So, say if you're telling like a teacher or a guidance counselor or a principal, if they don't follow up and they don't do anything with it, then it just kind of dies right where you told them and nothing gets done. And then they just kind of push the blame and shift the blame around to,
Yep.
oh yeah, I forgot that they did tell me that, but I just thought that those two were just not getting along and that they would work it out. I recently saw it was a documentary, I think it was on Facebook about bullying, and there was a scene where the two kids were fighting, and then the teacher made the kid who was being bullied apologize to the bully. Um, and I was that just frustrated me so much. I'm like, are you just not getting it? You're not getting what this kid is going through, and you're not getting what this kid's trying to tell you. And here you are trying to make this kid apologize to the kid who's beating him up. That doesn't
Yep.
make sense, you know? And so I just wanted to, like, climb through that screen and just shake that teacher, say that, "You're not getting it," you know? But no, I don't think we're doing enough, and I don't know how you really legislate something like that. That's why, I'm all for, we have cell phones, that's something we did not have a lot back, when we were growing up. And so I always tell people, you got a body cam with you all the time. So you at least can
Yes.
get proof on your phone that something is happening, whether it's you turn on the recorder, or you turn on the video and you can get video. Um, and I'm a firm believer. Some people disagree with me on this one, but I'm a firm believer. You post it if somebody's bullying you, post it online because that seems to neutralize the bully pretty darn quick when their family and their friends see how they behave in public or how they behave at school or how they behave like at college. When they see it in a video online where other people are commenting on it, that kind of stops it for a while.
Yeah.
And of course, I hate that phrase that most people say. This I just saw it the other day, by somebody. It was some guy who had gone on a tirade, and then the comment was made, and he says, "I really apologize for flying off the handle. That is not in my character, and that is not who I am." And I'm thinking that is exactly who you are, or you wouldn't have done it. So, uh, I
Correct.
mean, I think that nobody wants to take responsibility for their actions or for their role in something. So, no, as a society, I don't know what the answer is other than the bully needs to kind of take control of their own existence, I guess, or the bullied person. Um, that's kind of what I did. I mean, I kind of just navigated it myself, and tried to minimize as much damage as I could as a kid and even as an adult. I like when my stepdad would come into my room and he was mad about something, I usually would lock my door and then I would open up my window and I would hide under the bed. And then he would come in, see the open window, and assume that I ran out the window. And so he would go looking for me outside. And so that I just learned little hacks like that that would get them, out of the way for a while. And then by the
Yeah.
time he sobered up and he was like, "What am I doing outside?" Why am I out here? And by that point, then the whole thing had blown over, and so it was just I learned how to navigate, and it's unfortunate that we don't have advocates around, who will advocate for us or who advocate for the bullied people. So sometimes we just kind of have to take matters into our own hands and kind of do it for ourselves for a while until
Yeah.
they get the other people to
The,
catch up.
the problem is though when a kid takes it in their own hands, they could end up doing the wrong thing, like hurting
Mhm.
themselves. And that's
Yeah,
not how
yeah,
it should
that's
work.
true. Right. Or vice versa, we see all these mass shootings, and so it could go that way too, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just kinda knowing the right way to handle the situation. But that's why I feel like we're not doing enough in our schools. Um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if, like, any of these kids have actually gone to, like, a teacher to say, "Hey, this is what's happening," or gone to the principal, say, "This is what's happening," and nothing is getting done, or if they're just kinda keeping it inside until it boils over. I mean, ideally, I mean, I really think that there should be some kind of a course taught of some kind in school, so that people could learn more about bullying or have more bullying like seminars and things brought into schools, to make it more visible. I guess is the word
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
And they need to start that at a young age, like second, third grade, when the
Yeah.
bullying starts
Hmm.
starting to ramp up. It's
Yep.
really hard to change the culture, especially when the kids and a freshman in high school. I feel it's
Yeah.
very,
Well,
very tough to
a-
work with those kids. It's easier to get them when they're younger and start building that generation up at a young age.
absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I was substitute taught for a year. I substitute taught, and I had to teach kindergarten one time, and some of those kids were like the worst behaved kids I you'd ever seen. I'm like, you need to start like way back then almost, just to make sure you're not my boss, that kind of thing. I mean, I was like, okay, the substitute teaching was not my gig, so I learned that out very very quickly.
What's sad with those kids, though, with those kids' home lives most likely suck.
Yeah, no, exactly. And honestly, because people say, "Well, why do you think people bully?" And I really think people learn it at home, and I think that bullying is their outlet. I think they're getting either bullied or mistreated at home, and so when they go into school, they act out because they can, because they found somebody who is weaker than them. They have to listen to what their parents say, or follow what their parents do at home, and so this is their chance to take control of the situation while they're at school. They're like they might be the bigger kid and they're after the little kid. And so that's their way of expressing all the stuff that's pent up inside them as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's just not the most productive use of their
Yeah.
time and energy.
We had a guest on our show a few weeks ago, and he was bullied all throughout school, and then he turned into the bully. But he said when he felt the power of being the bully, it's it felt good. It's almost an addictive feeling, like, "Okay, I have this power that you don't normally have," and it's a cycle that we have to somehow break, and I don't know how to do it either. Maybe start teaching kids at a young age, 2 courses. 1, how you should be treated at home, what your home life should look like. I don't wanna get into details about that because people might not want my opinions. But 2 is how you respect other people as well.
Right.
It
No,
starts with the home
exactly.
and in the school.
Mhm. Yeah. Of course, my mom says everybody wants to blame me for stuff. Kids always want to blame their whole everything that's wrong with them on you. I said, well, of course we do. It's you pass the blame. Blame the parents. It's all the parents' fault. But a lot of times it kind of starts there. Um, but and it could be the opposite. I mean, because I know like a lot of times, like with these kids in schools who cause a lot of trouble, it's they go, their parents are like, well, I had no idea that he was like that as a kid. I mean,
Yep.
and I think that a lot of times kids the parents put them in front of television sets and in front, oh, just go play on your phone. It's kind of, we don't want to deal with it right now. So I think that they kind of get themselves isolated and they start reading all this stuff online or playing games, and things like that.
Yeah.
And I almost think that they kind of do it because they're being ignored at home and they're not being stimulated at home, and so they figure, okay, well, if I cause a disturbance at school, my parents are going to notice me. So it's kind of like that reverse psychology of, well, if I
Yep.
it's better to do something bad because I'll get noticed. If I do something good, nobody notices, kind of thing. So it's kind of both both ends of the spectrum. You could have really crappy parents who are mean to you all the time that causes it, or you could be the opposite where might have nice parents, they just don't have time for you or they just ignore you. And again, that kind of can lead to the same thing. Um, but I guess I'm a firm believer at the end of the day, it's really on how you process it as a person. I mean, you know, there is things are going to happen to us, and it's just how we react to them.
Yeah.
You know,
What is one thing you want to see the schools change to combat bullying?
um, for me, I really would just like them to take bullied kid seriously when the bullied kid goes up to tell them something. And no, it is not. I really don't think it's a good idea to pull the bullied kid and the bully into the same room and talk to them together. They don't think that that is going to solve the problem. I think that if I really don't think somebody, is going to lie and say, "Oh, so and so is bullying me, and I want you to kick them out of school." I mean, I really don't think anybody's gonna lie about that. I mean, but their whole thing is, let's just try to get along, and then they try to
Yeah.
bring you both of you together in the same room, and they try to get you to work it out and shake hands and all that malarkey. And I just don't think that that is the right way to do it. There needs to
Yeah.
be you need to hold them accountable. I mean, it's just kind of even in our adult lives, you see people who all the time are you see them on the news every single night. There's somebody who's acting crazy in like a supermarket or on the airplanes or whatever. There needs to be some type of punishment or repercussion or something in order to kind of shake them out of what it is that they're going through. So even if it's like school, sometimes a 3-day suspension, that's like a vacation. That's like, woohoo!
Yeah.
Maybe detention for maybe
Exactly.
detention for 3 days. Um, but yeah, I don't know what the answer is as far as schools go, but I do think
Oh,
that,
when you
there
tell
needs to
them
be a
to say,
process of follow through.
yeah, when you say you want the schools to take it seriously, really what you want the schools to do is just listen to the kid.
Yeah.
Listen to
Yeah,
them
because a lot of
and
times Mhm.
investigate that side. Okay, let me go talk to the other kid and let's get down to it. Why is
Yeah.
that hard to do?
Yeah. And was there anybody else with you? So did anybody else see this kid bully you? Okay, let me
Look
pull
at the
those 2 kids
cameras.
aside. Let's talk.
Pull up the cam.
Yeah, yeah.
Schools have cameras these
You
days.
know,
Pull those cameras up.
yeah, well, yeah, and that's something else we didn't have back in our day. We
Yeah.
didn't have the cell phones, we didn't have the cameras, we didn't have any of that stuff. So wonder we all stayed alive back then. I'm telling you, it was but it wasn't quite
Yeah.
that bad. I mean, I would not want to be a kid today, honestly, going to school. School's a lot worse now, I think, than definitely whenever I was going to school.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's a lot of overcrowding. And I've done many of these interviews now with people, and what's coming out to me is the teachers. I do believe that the teachers care about what's going on. It's just that they have so much on their plate they can't handle every situation. And the schools need to find somebody that can get hire more social workers, get those people on a team, and start knocking these these kids who are complaining about bullying. Start taking care of these kids right now.
And then, of course, then another issue that we have too is that, parents of like the bullies, they want to sue the school for, discrimination, or they want to sue the school for, um, you know, I mean, even whenever I substitute taught, there was a kid who was misbehaving in kindergarten, and I stood the kid in the corner, and I got in trouble for standing at the kid in the corner because it drew attention to the kid and it made them feel bad. Well, you know, when you were misbehaving, you stand in the corner, but apparently that is humiliation to the child, and you can't do that. Uh, so that was something that I learned. And I was like, okay, substitute teaching is not for me. So um, it is. We become a society that it seems like we cannot find a fine line between what people consider abuse and what people consider punishment. There's like a fine line there, discipline, because we just have a lack of discipline problem. Anyway, it's trying to find a way to discipline somebody without going over the line. You
Yeah.
know.
What our guest last week said is that they kids have way too much power. They're not scared of teachers.
Yeah,
They're not scared of their parents anymore. They have all of the control.
that's it. Yeah, and
That's
I
not
agree
good.
with
That's
that.
not good.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, yeah, and so I don't know how we take it back. It's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm glad I'm an adult. I mean, I guess I'm to the point now I can navigate myself around bullies because I can just make sure that I avoid them and do what it is that I do. But teaching other people to do the same things sometimes may not have the same results. I mean, what happens? Yeah, it's kind of like I told people, well, what I have in my book that might work for me, but that may not work for you. And it's no matter what book you read or no matter what bullying expert you talk to, what they say may or may not work for you. So sometimes it's just trial and error. You just got to keep trying a bunch of different things and see if something sticks.
Yeah. Do you think though there's probably a one universal tool a kid can use to overcome bullying, or is it really just down to whatever your situation is? Like, is there like one thing a
Um,
kid can do to try to prevent it? And I don't know this answer. I'm just throwing this out here as a hypothetical question.
yeah, no, for me, it was, if I had to pick, I would say if you have friends, travel around with them. You know, a bully is less likely going to pounce on you if they have to fight four of your friends with them. Um, Unfortunately, if you're a kid who's bullied a lot of times you don't have friends. So that's the other
So what do you
kicker
do?
is that
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the instance where I just what I call is remapping. I kind of reroute what it is that I'm doing for the day. Um, and okay, this is where I tend to see the bully all the time is in this place right here. If there's a way I can avoid that place, I do it. Um, and then I just started. One of the other things that I did was I would start to pre-plan. Like if I knew that a bully was going to say a certain thing, like if the bully was just a mouthy person, and I would pre-plan things that I was going to say in return. I'm like, okay, because they say the same thing all the time. They call you the same names, and you know, just to see if they. So a lot of times I would just kind of, you know, and I did this a lot whenever I did stand up comedy. It was like they told us always like from the beginning, write jokes about like if somebody stands up and shouts, "You suck," that so you write down a specific response to that. If somebody drops a tray or somebody throws something at you, always write like have a response in your back pocket that you can say. And I recommend that even for kids who are bullied a lot, you know. Um, Bullies are very unoriginal most of the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you can just pre-script a response. I mean, I would even go and watch like movies of like you know, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. And I mean, I would just kind of watch the way they walked and the things that they said, and then I would kind of, you know, sometimes I would try to walk that way. I mean, I felt stupid because I'm
Yeah.
like this little skinny kid. I'm like, you know, but at the same time, you know, whenever I would walk with my head down looking at a book or something, that's when they would usually pounce, you know. So I think part
Yeah.
of it is too your posture and just making sure that you're looking around and being aware of what's around you. They're less likely to pounce if they know that you're watching them and you're ready for it.
Yep. Going back to having phrases, as a stand-up comic, have you experienced people yelling to you on stage, "You suck"? And if you have, what was your best response?
um, I have. It was really interesting. There was one time in it was in West Virginia. So, um, and they started shouting at me, and it was right in the middle of my show. And before I could even say anything, I was ready with a response. I had other people in the crowd who started yelling at the people who were yelling at me. So they were telling them to shut up because they were enjoying the show. And then, so it ended up like with a fight, you know, between, you know, but the typical response, I would just try to be really, I tried to be polite even back then. You know, I would say something like, well, if you don't like this show, if you be quiet, I'll do it at normal speed. If you hate the show really much and you keep yelling at me, I'm going to do this show 10 times slower, and it's going to take us 10 times longer to get through it. You got it, you know. And then I was just like, as I was, but for the most part, that was kind of like a really bizarre show in West Virginia when they all started like fighting amongst each other. And you know, as a comic, you're hired to perform for however long. So if my
Yeah.
set was 30 minutes, that I had to be up there for 30 minutes. So I can't just walk off and go, okay, you think I suck? I'm leaving. You know, so you have to again, you have to figure out a way to navigate. I will say, like, throughout my career doing stand-up, it had happened rarely. Rarely did people really shout stuff at me, so that was good.
Okay.
I would say maybe
As a
twice.
kid as a kid, did you have like a script to counterattack those comments at you? And if you did it work?
As a kid, I never did do that. That was something I kinda learned as I got older, like, when I started getting more toward college age. Um,
Okay.
because that's when because then I started doing comedy during that time, and that's when somebody brought that idea up was to I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And so then I started doing that, like, whenever I would encounter because even in college, I would encounter some people who were bullies, and I would always have something in my back pocket to say then. Um, so I wish I had known, you know, that trick early on. So
Yeah.
it might have helped, it may not have, but like I said, but it might have helped to have, something, you know, I mean, I would just try to make jokes and be witty, and sometimes while they're trying to figure out if what the joke was, they're trying to figure out was that funny or was that a dig at me?
I
That by that
feel
point I was gone.
I feel like for a kid to do that, in my opinion, it might make things worse. Let's just say a kid came up to me and says, "You smell." I'd be like, "Well, I smell like your mom." You know, I throw it back, like, the "yo mama" jokes we had back when we were younger. I feel like that was what got
Yeah.
me a black eye.
Well, a lot of times though, what we do is I would have people tend to agree with them. So like, so say if they would say, you know, you smell, I say, why, thank you. You know, that's my, you know, that's my Thursday deodorant, you know, or whatever, you know, so it would, but I wouldn't, I don't recommend like when you have something that
Insulting.
you want to say back to them. Right. Exactly. Find a witty way of responding to them that doesn't put them down as well. And don't call them a name in return. Um, you
Okay.
know, like, there was a little girl that I talked to whenever I was writing this book, and she said that that's what she does, like, when people say, "Oh, that dress is ugly. Oh, I know this dress is ugly. My mother makes me wear this all the time. I hate this dress." You know, things like that, and so then it frustrates, like, the bully after a while because 'cause they're like, no matter what they say to her, yeah, "Oh my god, your hair's a mess. Did you wash your hair?" "No, I don't wash my hair. I never wash my," you know, and so then when they know that they can't get her upset and that she agrees with everything that they say, it gets them to the point where they're frustrated. There's like, "Oh, heck with her. We'll just bully somebody else because she's no fun." Because really what the bully wants is they want to get a response from you. And when you don't offer the response that they're wanting, they either want you to cry or get mad or call them a name in return so that it fires them up. Um, it's kind of like my mom. When
Yeah.
my mom is mad and she wants to talk, and if you just shut up and don't say anything, it makes her even more mad. So like, why aren't you saying anything? I'm gonna watch TV. So it's when you don't get that response, that so that actually came from another girl too. I was writing the book. She said she does that. Her mom said she does it all the time. She just kind of will agree with what they say, and it kind of shuts them down. It's kind of like they don't know what to do about it. Then they're like, oh, you know, she knows that she smells and she knows that her hair is dirty and she
Yeah.
knows that her dress is ugly. So what are we gonna say to this girl?
Yeah, no kidding. You have no friends, haha.
Uh, yeah. So, um, I mean, I don't know if it'll work today. Like I said, I suppose it also could depend on as well. It might be different whether it's a boy bullying you or a girl bullying you too. So I'm sure the girl who was talking about agreeing with everything that they say, she was probably having girls bully you. And girls tend to bully a little bit differently than boys do. I mean, a lot of girls would just kind of purposely exclude girls from stuff. And I mean, that's kind of a way to bully people too, is that I'm going to invite the whole entire class to my birthday party, but you. I'm not going to invite you so
Oh,
that
yeah.
you stand out. That kind of thing.
Yeah, my daughter, who's 5 years old, when she's mad at me, she'll say, "You can't come to my birthday party." Like, "Oh, ouch."
I guess you're
But
not
to
getting a
them,
cake
they're serious.
then.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's interesting because she's in preschool, and that may look lighthearted to us, but if I was her age, you know, I could take that
A
as being
birthday's a big
picked on.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a birthday's a big deal, for a kid, and then, oh, everybody in class is talking about going to this birthday party, and I was the one kid who wasn't invited to this birthday party. You know, it's amazing what and see, I guess that's another thing about schools. As a teacher, it's not a big deal to us sometimes when like a kid says, "Well, they didn't invite me to a birthday party." For a teacher, they might be, "That's no big deal." But as a kid, it is a big deal.
Yep.
So it's kind of like navigating, what what may not be a big deal to the teacher, and when if the teacher doesn't pass on that they're being bullied or whatever, it may not seem like a big deal to them, but to the kid, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, and so
I remember when I was
I
in
think that
6th I remember when I was in 6th grade, I invited my class to my birthday party, and only 4 it was like a class of 30 kids, and only 4 kids showed up, and 2 of them told me that their parents made them come. I was just like, that was like another slam, kick in
yeah,
the
and
groin.
and honestly, I cannot remember ever having a birthday party where friends came. Um, as a kid, my parents always had a birthday party. My aunts and uncles were there, and then the only kids that would show would be like my cousins. But I honestly cannot remember a time. I mean, even to this day, I don't have birthday parties. I don't invite people to my birthday party. I don't. Um, I nobody ever like plans them. I don't have birthday parties. It's just one of those things that I don't know if it's just like a mental thing. Like as a kid, I never got invited to them. And so I'm not going to have a big deal about my birthday party because I don't want to invite people and have them not show up. And so
You know what?
I've just never really,
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I was picked on. I had bad luck at birthday parties. I don't have them anymore. I don't have them, and I don't expect people to plan them for me either.
yeah.
When I did have them, they were negative experiences.
Yeah. So it's like, I would prefer just to be quietly, have a quiet birthday. And if somebody wants to send me
Age
a card in
alone.
the mail, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Um, and I probably now, if I probably had a birthday party and I planned it and I invited people, they would probably come. Probably, I hope, but I'm not willing to take that chance. It's one of those things I just don't want to do. I'm like, my birthday party's not a maybe I'll do like a birthday Zoom thing or something. I don't know. But but it's just nothing that interests me anymore. I guess I'm past that stage, where I care about people coming to a birthday party. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, down deep inside, do you still wish that like people would throw you a party or no?
It would be nice to experience that, but I'm so introverted that it'll probably be awkward at the same time.
Right. Like, oh my gosh, all these people came to my birthday party. Yeah, no, now how old are you? I'm just curious how old you are.
I'm 43.
Okay, so I'm 52, so I'm a tad older, but yeah, but no, I get it. It's like it's one of those things. It's yeah, and people who've never experienced that, never had people not show up to a birthday party or not invited you to one. Because my whole thing is if no kids have ever invited me to a birthday party, then I'm surely not going to invite kids. I mean, I was that one kid that when we had like Valentine's Day and they would like pass like the little Valentines around to your day, I would never get a
Yeah.
card. And I felt like Charlie Brown, nobody gave me a
Uh,
Valentine card this year, that kind of. So it's just one of those things, that it's kind of plagued me. So it's like in the back of my mind, I don't purposely want to bring these kind of things up. It's like I don't put myself in a position where I can get rejected kind of thing?
yeah. Like on TV, you see these extravagant birthday parties, and I'm like, really? Is that true? Is this what people do? Because I never experienced that. I never even been invited to a birthday party, even to my true friends. They never had a birthday party like they show on TV. I don't know why they have to show like some extravagant birthday party anyway. Just show three kids hanging out playing video games. That's
Well,
I don't
I'm sure
understand.
if you and I had a birthday party and we said, "Come to our birthday party, get this $4,000 swag bag, and we're gonna," like, yeah, then I'm sure people would come because they're just coming to get the swag bag and they're coming because it's held at the Hilton and that you have like Adele singing the songs, singing Happy Birthday. I mean, that's why they would come. They're not coming necessarily for you. They're coming for like this experience of what they're gonna get. And of course, a normal person can't, compete with that kind of thing?
Have
I'd be like,
Have you
"Come to
done
my
birthday
birthday party,
parties?
get a." No, that's not I never wanted to do that. That is not the
Okay.
kinda I'm a humanitarian clown, so it's like my next big project is I'm organizing a trip to Guatemala. And what we're doing is we're going to take 100 backpacks filled with school supplies to give to the needy children in Guatemala because there they can't afford to buy their own school supplies. Then they're not allowed to go to school, and so the parents have to choose: do I feed my kid today or do I send my kid to school? So we're going to at least get 100 kids into school when we go to Guatemala in February. So we're going to take backpacks filled with school supplies. So that's the kind of clowning that I like to do, something that kind of
Okay.
leaves like a legacy. And I guess part of my reason to shun doing birthday parties is because I never had one as a kid. And so I was like, I'm just kind of like, no, I'm not doing that. And plus, I don't, uh, that's not my vibe. I kind of, um, I'm more of like the one-on-one kind of things. Like I'll go into like hospital rooms and I'll go into like, prisons and things like that. I'll do that kind of thing. Um, but it's a whole different feel. That way I don't have like, because what we do, like whenever I go into places, I don't have like an organized set of ideas of what I'm going to do. It's not like I'm doing this show when we go into a
Yeah.
prison or when we go into a hospital. It's just whatever happens, happens. I mean, I'll take like a bunch of stuff with me and we'll kind of work through it and see what happens. But when you do like a party, you have to have like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's got to be this big production. And I'm like, and plus, I hear horror stories from other clowns who do parties. So we went in there, and then the parents all leave, and you're left with like 14 girls, and none of them want to pay attention.
Oh
And
no. Yeah,
so
that
it's like with
be hard.
you become the babysitter. So that's kind of like, oh yeah, no, that's not what I want to do for the next 25 years. Is do these parties where I'm babysitting children.
I think I would start a cake fight. "Oh, kids, let's play a game. It's called Cake Fight. Cut the cake."
Uh,
The
Actually,
parents
that
will
probably
never
sounds
leave
like
you
that
alone
that
again.
that would probably be more my speed.
Yeah.
"Oh, let's make our own cake. Let's go find some eggs. Let's go see what we can find in the kitchen." That'd be more my speed of things to do.
Do
That's
you
funny.
have any advice for people who feel left out, feel different, who are being picked on?
Yeah, I mean, my advice probably doesn't sound the more that I think about this, let me think about how to answer this question. I do
We got
have
time.
um the best advice I could probably give, and this probably is not the answer that you're looking for. Um, but this is something that I have found out from just doing like the clown tours that we do. Um, the best way to fit in for me anyway is to do nice things for other people. Whether that is just going down the street and giving a candy bar to the homeless, or opening the door to a store, or visiting somebody like in a nursing home that you may not even know, just like take like a flower to somebody. Um, because in turn, when you're nice to somebody else, it's the feeling that you get when you're nice to somebody um, that kind of helps you to heal inside. So, intuitive, if you're being ignored and nobody's paying attention to you, is the perfect way for you then to approach somebody else. Of course, most of us probably don't do that. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, that's kind of like this addictive thing. It's kind of like, if I get to the point where I haven't clowned for like say maybe a week. Then I'll get into my costume and I would just, I'll go to Walmart. I don't care. I mean, I can't look any worse than half the people at Walmart.
Exactly.
so,
Exactly.
so I'll just go into Walmart and then I'll just pretend like I don't know that I'm in my clown costume. I'll have these big clown shoes on and I'll be having like these little rubber chickens hanging off of me and I'll just be like shopping, buying cereal or whatever, and just pretend, so it's just a way for it to be seen, and honestly, I think that a lot of us, that's what we want, is, we just want the right people to see us, we don't wanna be bullied, um, so it really just, doing nice things for other people, that's in some respects why I kinda like, uh, organizations like the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, things like that, where they kind of teach children how to do nice things for other people. Because I think that's like one of the best. Um, and it's just kind of like we mentioned earlier when we were talking about like the super successful people who had been bullied. Um, it's just kind of like, what, I'm going to do what I want to do in spite of the way I've been treated. And so let me go out and do some nice things for other people, regardless of the way other people have treated me.
Yeah, I
That
think
might not be
that's
the answer that
actually
you were looking for.
no, that's a great answer because especially as a kid, when a kid goes out and does something nice to somebody else, that's probably gonna be the first time that they ever felt appreciated by somebody. And they're gonna they're gonna want that feeling again, and they're gonna look towards more helping other people. So I think that's a great answer. And I never thought about that for an idea. That's an excellent way for kids to start getting that acceptance feeling. That's
Yeah, I
what
mean,
they're missing too
just
when they're being bullied.
yeah. Mhm. And like I said, I mean, I know even from as a child, my mom was, she was a nurse's aide, so she worked in a nursing home, and so you know, I didn't have friends like in school. I mean, I didn't go hang out with kids at school, so on like the weekends, I would pop into where my mom works and I would play like rummy with the old ladies up there, do crafts with them and things like that. And they just loved me, and I was like, oh, this is, and granted that, I was playing like, with 80-year-old people, but at the same time, I was helping them pass their time. They were having a good time because, they were being stimulated, you know what I mean? Like, mentally and stuff, so, we had a great time, so that's kind of that's probably one of the reasons I work a lot with seniors now is just because I used to do that a lot growing up, and so I still do the same thing. I'll still go in and, we'll clown around and we'll fling chickens and we'll, do all kinds of things, with the seniors, play bingo, things like that, um, but it's just a way of it's kind of a way of kinda getting away from yourself and not worrying about what happened to you in the past or what's going on like at home. And because you can't be happy and sad at the same time. That's the one thing that I
Yeah.
realized. So like so if you're gonna be happy, like say if like at a nursing home, just say you're playing at a nursing home for an hour. For that hour, you're happy. You're not thinking about anything else. And so eventually you get to the point where then it's 2 hours at a time that you're happy. Um, and now it's like, I don't really care what happens to me during the day. Typically, I just don't let that frustrate me, which has taken me a while to get to that. But, because I just know like tomorrow I'm going to go clown with somebody and I'm going to have a good afternoon and none of that's going to matter what happened today. So,
Yeah. I think what I do in my anti-bullying seminars is I talk about self-worth a lot to kids.
mhm.
And I tell kids, be with people who see value in you. Because if you're trying to impress that person who sees no value in you, you're wasting your time. Who cares? Be with people who see the value in you and hang with those people. Not worrying about other people.
Sometimes that's hard to tell a kid, especially if like the girl really wants to be a cheerleader, but all these other little cheerleaders are snobs. And, or like in dance class, or, she wants to be a ballerina. The other girls are like, yeah, you're poor. You don't look good in your whatever. It's hard, to tell them not to be with those people. But I get exactly where you're going with that. That you're
Yeah.
exactly right.
Well,
Um,
I use
and
money
that's
to
part.
help explain this. I use money to help explain this whole thing out. So I get kids pretty engaged. But
Uh,
going back to your point about the cheerleaders, I'll tell kids, is that what you want to be like? You want to be a snobby cheerleader? You want to be snobby to other people? Is that what you want to be? Come on.
Like, "No," and of course the cheerers go, "Wait a minute, we're not like that." Yeah. But yeah, no, I totally get it, um, and that's one of the things that I mean, as a kid, no I mean, nobody ever told me that as a kid. I'd never heard any seminar or anything as whenever I was in school that said anything about hanging out with people who see your worth, and I'm like, I don't even know I don't know that I ever heard that even through high school. Did anybody ever said
No.
anything like that to me back then? Um, you know?
And apparently kids don't hear it now because when I give this whole speech, it's like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. I'm like, "Y-
Like, I can't be the only person
yeah,
that's ever said this to you?
exactly. I'm not. And I didn't, the speech I came up with, I heard it say in other business seminars I've gone to, um, different variations of these speeches. I've heard different variations, but I tailored it to what I want to do. So it's out
Of
there.
course.
People know about it, but they're not teaching it to kids like they should be. They should be giving this message to kids. So I'm going out and doing this myself.
Yeah, it's like I mean, one of the things I always try to tell them whenever I'm doing, like, my little bully proof boot camps is, you know, if you're not fitting in with people, maybe you were the one that was born to stand out. So, you maybe sometimes you just gotta forge your own path and find your own tribe, Maybe, like, the people that you're hanging around with at school, they're just eventually in life, they're not gonna be the tribe of people that you hang out with. I mean, I didn't hang out with any
It,
clowns in school for heaven's
no,
sake, you know? And if
you're
you told
the
me that
you're
at
the
40
perfect you're the perfect example of what you just said because you're a clown. Who else? Nothing can stand out more than a clown. So
yeah, and like I
you live
said,
it.
and honestly, if you had told me, seriously, I didn't become a clown until I was 47, and I was like, if you had told me that, okay, you're gonna go in your first 50 years are almost gonna be like crap, and then all of a sudden at 47, you're gonna become this clown, and you're gonna go into your older age dressed like a clown every day, I would have told people they were nuts. This is just this is just not a path I saw for myself at all. Um, but it is what it is, and so now my point has become to, as I mentioned earlier, just try to do as many nice things for as many different people as I can, for as long as I can while I can, so I may not always be able to do my clown trips or may be able to go into orphanages or whatever. So I'm going to do that for as long as I can while I can and make as many people as happy as I can, you know.
I love it. Wrapping up, Bullseye, what is one thing you would tell a child who is being bullied?
The main thing I would tell them is that it's not their fault. I think sometimes bullied children think that they're being bullied because of something that they did, and it's not their fault. Um, and I definitely would tell them to. enlist the help of someone, even though I don't always think that telling someone is going to end it. But I think that other people need to know about it, so that something can be hopefully done about it. You know, just making sure that you're telling the right person. Um, Mom and dad is a big help. It's like I said, I never wanted to tell my mom and dad, but I would suggest telling your mom and dad, letting them know that you're being bullied by somebody at school, and hopefully, um, they will want to do something about that to help you as well.
Bullseye, if people want to find you, where can they find you at?
Everywhere. Okay, so you can find me at my website, which is bullseyetheclown.com. If you're wanting to know kind of where I'm going as far as my mission work goes, I started my own company called Clowns on a Mission. So you can visit me at clownsonmission.com. I'm on Facebook. Just look up Bullseye the Clown. But keep in mind, there's two of us. There's a scary looking one, and then there's me. Uh, so look for the cute one. And also, I'm Bullseye Clown on Instagram. So those are the places that they can find me. And if they want to find my book, they can find my book. It's called Bullseye on Bullying, Your Blueprint to Beating the Bullies, and that's on Amazon.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Bullseye the Clown, for coming on my show.